Good morning and welcome to the Sage Intelligence Reporting webinar. We're going to cover lots of information today, and most of it is really an overview. So I'm going to walk through various aspects of the Sage Intelligence Reporting application. It's been around for about 5 years. Everybody that owns a Sage 100 license has a report manager. There are some other licenses if you're doing multi-companies, consolidations, and things like that. There is a report designer add-in. I'm not going to spend a lot of time delineating what those are. I'm really going to show you how the program runs and some of the different aspects that you might find appealing to you. So I'm going to jump right into Sage 100. I'm using Sage 100 2017. There's nothing really any different. The Sage Intelligence runs with any version beyond 2014, and I think most everybody on this is probably on 2015 and above. It's all running the same version of Sage Intelligence beyond 2015. So you might be running Sage 2017, you won't really notice that it's really any different. When the workstation setup is run, the Sage Intelligence is installed now. In the old days, you used to have to add it. It's been installed and it sits right here under the common information. There are some setups that happen in that process. We're not really going to go through the setting up or the licensing. I'm really just going to go into looking at the report manager, which is the primary function of Sage Intelligence. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and launch the report manager. And it loads my Sage Intelligence. So this is the basic window for everything. I'm going to point out just a couple of things because as you explore intelligence on your own, you're going to see some other things. So if you were to just go launch Sage 100, it would ask you for a repository. So in the setup, there's some things where you have to establish your license, which is verified through the Sage portal. But this is where all of your reports are stored. It happens to be a UNC path. It cannot be a drive letter, so that would have to be a network type path. It shows how it's being connected and who the default user is. So there is a single report manager license for everybody. The reports can be run out and distributed. If you want individuals to be able to run their own reports, then you would need to add what are called viewer licenses. But we're not really going to get too distracted with that. I've got all sorts of different folders over here. I can close them up and open them back up. But I'm really just going to jump in and go run out a report and give you an idea of what happens in Sage Intelligence. So I have a demonstration version. This data happens to be running with company ABX, which is one of the sample companies. I'll jump back over here. You can see that my company is ABX. You may not have that installed. It may be that if you want to play with Sage Intelligence, having it or the ABC company might be helpful, but it's not necessary. But for this particular example, it uses the data in company ABX. So I highlight the report, and up here at the top, I simply click on the Run button. And you can see over on the right, I get a little status bar of what's happening. So the bottom line of what's happening is Report Manager creates a bridge between your Sage 100 data. And when that report gets run, it gets run out into native Microsoft Excel. So the beauty of this, from my perspective, is that when the report is run out, it is an Excel report and you can format it and you can add other formulas, formatting, whatever you want to be able to do. I know maybe a lot of you might preview financial reports inside Sage 100 and then you export them to Excel each month and then you have to make changes. For those who are looking at this just for financial statement reporting, that's what I would say is one of the biggest advantages, because you can create your reports here and instead of having export them in Excel, you can run them for a new period each time and not have to change any formulas or formatting. In this demonstration piece that's provided as part of your Sage Intelligence, it's created a whole group of details about this, including some instructions in terms of how you can use the report designer, which is what we're using. You'll notice over on the right, there is a thing called financials. This is called the task pane, and it has a bunch of different formulas and lists and different things that you can use to design and customize your reports, linking back to your Sage 100 data. We're using the Report Designer add-in right now, and you'll notice that this report that I ran created a series of different reports. It ran out a balance sheet, an income statement, and then several summaries and a cash flow, and this also is a summary by accounting category. The way this report was generated, it uses standard Excel formatting in this case, and so it rolled these up. So in this particular case, my balance sheet is summarized. If I click over here and expand that, it shows me the details of these accounts. The account detail, in this particular case, it was set up to show quarter and the like. What's really cool about this is once I've run out a report, I can change periods if I've got parameters up here and be able to change things and be able to recalculate things based on a period within this sheet. There are other reports, when you run them out, you'll have to specify the period, but this has summarized a bunch of data from here. I'll go over and look at the income statement again. It's using summarizing in the Sage Excel reporting, but here I can expand it and see the detail. In this case, these parameters were set up with current and year to month, year to date for this year. The ABX and the ABC data in 2016 and above uses data for 2020, so we're not really in the future, but the data is dated 2020. And in this case, it's set up to provide a comparative statement for last year, for the current month and year to date, and then to show me the variances. I can then interject other formulas, or if I have other things that I want to be able to do, if I want to format, I can do all the things that you could do in Excel with conditional formatting or the like. If I wanted this to be 12 periods, I could copy those columns over and have 12 months. I could make it quarters. This is just a summary, which is just rolling everything up by my categories that you've got in Sage 100. So whatever you've set up for your different levels, this is just kind of giving you a summary: revenue, cost of sales, expenses, and other items. So that's the basis of what's happened. It's taken that data, it's rolled them out, and then I want to show you what really is happening a little bit behind the scenes. And I realize that our audience is quite varied. So some people might be interested in just being able to use Sage Intelligence or a report, and they're not really so concerned about changing or editing formulas or making it tailored to what you want to be able to do. But if I look at this particular cell here for desk sales, it actually has a formula in here, which is how the data is retrieved. So this particular cell, and if I click up here on the function, it actually shows me how it returned that detail. So it looked at the account number over here in column C, which is the general ledger account number. It looked at the current year, which is 2020, and it looked at the period up here in cell D5, and then it used what's called reporting trees. So if any of you are familiar with FRX and use of reporting trees, those would be your departments, your sub-accounts, your locations, any of your offsets from your main account that you can use, and then you can actually bring those into and quickly change those departments and locations using the reporting trees. I'll show you a little bit of that as we go through. So basically that particular set of parameters returned that $640,000. I'm going to go here just for a minute and change that to period 4. You can see that in period 4, just by changing that there, I changed all of my current and year-to-date numbers in 2020. I don't have any data for 2019 for period 4, hence that middle 2 columns went to 0. But that is how this works and how easy it is to be able to change that. Now this report, keep in mind, at the time that you run the report, it is static. So for anybody that's on this call, and I know there's a couple that have used F9 in the past, F9 is actually linked directly into your Sage 100 data. So when you refresh or do an F9, you're actually refreshing data directly from the Sage 100 data. In this particular case, and the way Sage Intelligence works, when it runs the report out to Excel, it actually stores that data in a hidden worksheet. And so I can change this period number here and look at that data, but it is not reading back into the Sage 100 data. So if there are new items that are posted immediately, like right now, this report would need to be run out again in order to refresh that data from Sage 100. So I'm going to spend a few minutes with the task pane over here to give you an idea of some of the ways in which different things function. There are 5 overall functions, if you will. There's layouts, which allow me to create my own report for balance sheet, income statement, trial balance. I have lists of reports that of different things, accounts. I'm going to show you this where I actually need to generate a little sample report later on. If I look at formulas, these are all the types of formulas that I can drag into a particular cell. So I can do anything that's related to budget, anything actual year to date, lots of flexibility in that. Reporting trees are really the way in which your sub-accounts are related. I'm going to show you this in this particular company in ABX, and to show you what that actually looks like. So if I look at the cities, these happen to be the second segment. So if those are your locations or your departments, this really just creates a mask, if you will, and says where those parameters are. And if I highlight any of those, it actually shows me the accounts that make up anything, in this case, that has a 01 in the second segment of that account, and all the accounts that are related to at the bottom. And then how this gets used, if I were to take this and expand the all cities, which are just sub-accounts, and I click and drag that and drop it here in my tree, I've now changed my entire report here to only reflect Atlanta. So very easy ways to be able to change that by department if you want to be able to look at different things. If I want to go back and roll it up and say I want to see all cities, I can do the same thing and refresh the data back that way. So any way in which you build those trees, it can be incorporated. If you're not using that and you don't use any sub-accounts, or you roll everything up just into the consolidated, then that particular field doesn't apply. Okay, but it creates a lot of flexibility and a lot of at least being able to view things. If you wanted, you could actually take this particular report and you could copy this out and make your individual sheets, those could be your departments if you wanted, or your locations with a similar report, instead of having to change it here in the reporting window. Cash flow detail. The other thing that's really nice, I'm going to run out another report in a few minutes, but anything that you can do in Excel with the data, you can have here in your report. So if you wanted to show a chart, you can put that in here. So dashboards have become quite popular. So if you build a report and create a dashboard with that, you can use that same type of functionality for presentation using Sage Intelligence. I'm going to show you one of the dashboard reports. If I want month, if I want 12 periods, this gives you a lot of flexibility for being able to copy things over and see what's happening at a, really at a glance. Okay, just looking on my chat window there for a minute. Okay, and when I'm done with that report and I just wanted to do it, I could print that out. I'm not going to get into this, but you will notice that up here in the top, we have other options in reports that allow us to be able to generate reports and be able to do things with the task pane so that I could distribute reports. FRX had some of these capabilities, and some other reporting intelligence tools like Sage Intelligence also have that. But I can build a list of managers or individuals that I want to be able to email the report to. So I can basically build a distribution network and be able to run the reports out and then have them emailed out, or they can be published to an FTP site and other things like that. So I'm not going to save this report, but we're going to go back and run out some other reports and look at some other things and some other reports. So that's nice that our Excel has stopped working. So okay. I'm actually going to close out Report Manager and go back, and I'm going to switch to company ABC. For those of you who have multiple company databases in your Sage 100, if you don't own the connector license, then you have to change, and only the active company that you're in is what's run out from Report Manager. So I'm going to switch back to the company, the ABC data, which oftentimes we install just as a sample to have there. And then I'm going to launch the Report Manager again. So now anything that I run out in Report Manager will be drawing on the data from the ABC company, as you can see right here. If I was using the connector license and had it available, then I could have multiple entities in a database and actually be able to do consolidated financials using Sage Intelligence. So here under financials, I'm actually going to run a report out, and the Report Designer add-in, this particular report here, basically generates just a blank copy. We would normally make a copy of that because when we make the changes and create a new report, we would want to save that back and be able to run it out again in the future. So the Report Designer add-in is what allows me to be able to create my own custom reports, or if I've got unique account sequences for different accounts that don't just follow individual accounts, this will actually allow us to create this. You'll notice that there are no reports that were generated as part of this, but just something with some basic instructions. I'm going to go and simply insert a new worksheet here. And then I'm going to come over here under my layouts in the task pane, and I have the option, I'm going to go generate using the layouts for the trial balance. So I click on that, and what I basically have done is said use the default trial balance layout, which I'm going to show you that you could actually edit if you wanted or create your own. But using the ones that were provided with the Report Designer add-in, I basically created a list with all my accounts. This happened to be company ABC, but if you were running whatever your company was and you ran this out, it would know and be smart enough to have brought all of your accounts over by your different account categories. You'll notice that there are no numbers in there, and that's because by default this company ran out in 2017. But I'm going to change that to 2020, and you can see that simply by changing that, the data was all there and available in this report, and simply changing that date allowed me to be able to display that information. In the same way that I showed you before, I'm not going to again, but if I went over and used the tree, I could actually look at any of this data based on any of my departments that I wanted to be able to break it down. So in that minute, I was able to create a simple down and dirty trial balance report. And I'm going to do the same thing for an income statement and then show you how we can run those reports out from the ones we've just created from the report manager. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of this. The way I do that is I simply right click on the report that I want to copy, say that I want to copy, then I come back here and I paste that report, and I'm going to call this my webinar copy of the Report Designer add-in. That way we'll be able to see it unique. It is a little quirky in that I do have to close the report and open it back up in order to be able to see them, and I'm going to, didn't catch my rename there. Let's go rename that, and let's so now I'm going to run this report out. It's the same report we ran out a minute ago, but I want to be able to save this report and be able to run it back out with the parameters that I put in there. So we're running out the Report Designer add-in. And then we're going to create both a balance sheet and an income statement, and then save those reports out and run those from the report manager. So it saves all the data into the sheet and it's hidden. And I'm going to go here just like I did a minute ago. And we're actually going to generate a balance sheet. We're going to do the current period year to date. Using that layout, it's created the balance sheet. Again, in this particular case, the default has them summarized. And then we're going to go grab this income statement with the actual budget prior year. And you'll notice that at the bottom, it's labeled those worksheets appropriately. So we now have a balance sheet tab and we have an income statement tab. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand this so that when I run out the report, it shows my expanded report, because that may be more applicable. And again, you'll notice because we didn't save it with the year, we're going to change that to be 2020. And you can see that refreshes all of the data for everything we did. The formulas were already there. Each one of these formulas, as I showed you previously, are basically linking to these other cells. So it's really pretty cool. So I've actually be able to change those dates and have it reflected. We've created two reports there. Oh, we need to make sure that's 2020. And I'll expand those as well. So now we have two reports. And now I want to go save this report back to Report Manager. So I open up my Report Manager, and that's the report that I'm working on. There's a button here that says Save that Excel template, the changes that I've just made. So normally you would just save the Excel worksheet. In this case, we save it back to the Report Manager, and that's the report that we're working on. And it simply lets us know that if we had saved one previously and making changes, we're going to write over that particular file. And now it closes that Excel spreadsheet. So Excel is no longer open with that sheet. And now when I go run this report out, which is now my copy of that report, it's going to include the worksheets that I created for a balance sheet and an income statement. Now, we've kind of helped other clients design some, especially where you have a unique set of accounts that maybe roll up or maybe have ranges. This provides a lot of flexibility in order to being able to do that. So if you are re-entering numbers into Excel spreadsheet month to month, this would be a great tool to be able to have in your repertoire. So there you can see it remembered, including the year that I had in there. And if I were to do that, in this particular case, the formulas are for the current period. You could have designed this report, instead of saying the current period, you could have had a parameter up here that would have had the period number. But in this case, the report that was generated was using the current period. It looks at whatever would be the default in Sage 100. Okay, so everything we've done up to this point has been all related to General Ledger. So if others who might be running F9, this really isn't that much different. There are there's a little more flexibility with the reporting trees and things like that, but nothing that F9 really couldn't do. But beyond just the General Ledger, I'm going to show you a couple of other things that are really pretty cool. Okay, so I have a folder here called the Report Utility. And this is available to everybody, all of you who have a business care plan, that you can go to the Sage Intelligence site and you can create a link through what's called the Report Utility. I've got a copy of it open here. So once I open this shows all these different reports that Sage has created just as templates that you could actually use and be able to generate. So I don't know that I've done all of these, but if you see ones that you like and you click, then basically it moves those and transfers those over into a folder in your Sage Intelligence. So I've done this previously. So now you can see that I've got reports that can link my vendors. I've got other things that can look at my customers and my customer sales. I can link things to inventory. I've got some things that do General Ledger transaction detail here from our financial reports. So lots of different options. Purchase order, so anything that's in the business framework, those items can actually be linked. I have not spent a lot of time with it. There are a couple of people that are running job cost, and I did not think that the job cost was included, but there is at least one job cost report that's in there from the job profitability report. So we're going to go, and I'm going to just run a couple of these out. So one that I find most helpful is this customer sales report. I think there's data in here for this particular company. And again, depending on the report, the ones we were running for our GL and our financials, the accounting period was kind of embedded. But now I'm running a transaction report for my customer sales, and it's asking me for a range of dates. So I'm going to use the 2020 set of dates that are in there. So I'm going to use May through the 31st, May 1st to the 31st of 2020, and run that report. So I now have a report that broke down. I know it's probably a little bit small in our view, but it's broken down by customer. shows the invoice within there and the detail within that invoice. So I get a summary on this line by invoice and a summary, for the customer at the line on the top line. You'll notice when I clicked into this is actually a pivot table. So once I run out one of the canned reports, if I want to group this differently, so for example here, if I group this and say, instead of looking at by customer, I want to look at it by item. I simply change the pivot table and now it's rearranged my table to reflect subtotals by item code as opposed to customer and then customer within that. So pivot tables, if you're not familiar with them in Excel, are a very, very powerful tool. And I can simply go back and say, okay, I want to return it back to my original opportunity, my original report. And then you'll notice there are other fields in here that have not been used, but can be added. If there are tables from other places, you can actually link them using the connector module and be able to bring them into this report. So if you had data that was not Sage 100, you could actually join together Sage 100 data with data from some other table, an Access database, a SQL table, however else you might want to be able to do that. All of these came through with kind of standard things, so I could actually go, this happens to be all customers, but I could go back and just go grab a particular customer if I wanted to be able to look at those. So same flexibility. If I want to do reporting, etc., I can run these out. You'll notice that sometimes when you run a report out from Crystal and you save it to Excel, the formatting gets a little cattywampus. The beauty of these kind of reports is because it's generating them in native Excel, it tends to maintain that formatting and then giving you the ability to be able to augment that on your own. So I'm going to run out one other report. We're not going to save that. So I'm going to run one of the dashboard reports here. I'm not a big dashboard fan, but I know a lot of times it really is quite helpful. And in essence, all of a dashboard is really kind of data behind it that just happens to be summarized. So we're going to give all this with our 2020 dates. And you'll notice if you have budget codes, this actually links those. So we're going to run them for the original budget code. This one has a lot of data behind it, and I'm going to show you again, if I go here and unhide, what you'll notice is it has all of these different worksheets that were actually created as part of that data that make up the source data for what's showing in my dashboard. And then you can drill down and do whatever you want on these. You can modify. These have just been dropped into different areas, so you can do anything that you would do with reports and charts that you would do in Excel. They're all available to you based on that data that's been pulled over from Sage 100. You can change that. You could change the type of reports if you want to go from bar to pie charts. The data is already there. You can simply change the type of report that you want to be able to generate. I think that's all that I'm going to show in the moment. What I want to do is I am going to drop back to the report manager here for just a minute. I want to show you a couple of other things in one more of the report designer add-in. So I'm going to run that report out again. I'll now use the copy of the one that we ran out a few minutes ago. So the reports that we've looked at least the financial ones from our GL income statement and balance sheet, are listing individual lines for every account. A lot of times you roll up things or you have unique account numbering and sequence. And we're going to create a new worksheet here. And then I want to show you what happens with some of these things in the report layout. So if I do a list, I can actually go here and I can simply drag over and I can get a complete list of my main chart of accounts. So those are my main accounts. If I go and I grab my accounts, those grab my posting accounts. If I'm using roll-up codes, I can show roll-up codes. I don't think there are any roll-up codes in here. If I'm doing budgets, I can see my different budget categories so that I could actually put those in my parameters and be able to quickly change between my original and my revised budget. I can design my own layouts. We use these standard ones, but if I go into the layout manager, I can actually go in and create my own so that I could create a row set that was unique to the way that I wanted to be able to group my accounts and save that, and then use that row set for a layout to be generated. I showed you the trees briefly, the tools, the formulas allow me to be able to bring in the account, and then if I use the editor and I'm going to use the GL link here, actually we're going to cancel that. We're going to come over here and delete this. I want to show you just briefly how that formula works. So I'm going to actually put a balance here and we're going to go down. We're actually going to use a revenue account here. So I'm going to actually drop this actual balance formula in there, and then I'm going to come up here, and if I look at that, and you can see here with my GL link, if I link it to that account, and do we have anything else? I think that's so you can see that simply by linking that with that account number, I actually returned the current year and period balance for that account, and then I can do whatever I want with that in Excel. I can format it. Now you'll notice that came as a credit balance. So when I use this formula, what I actually would do is I would do that, those formulas would put in with a negative, so my credit balances would show as a positive number. So you can see that you can have total control and flexibility with the way you would go in and design your reports. And here, instead of that account, if I had that whole account there, I could actually put a range of accounts and have it totaled on one line and put my own description in there. So for those of you, we have a lot of clients who do that, where you create a unique group of accounts that get rolled up together. You have that ability to be able to do it here. Now you've got design. There's it's not just out of the box, go do that, but the tools are there. So with that in mind, I want to go show you some of the resources, and then we'll open it up for questions. So I'm going to close out of here. There is online sensitivity. I'm going to run this report out again here and show you inside there, but then I'm also going to jump back over here to my so I will show you these links. I've got a slide and make it available to you. There are great tools on the Sage website for lots of different helps. There is a whole catalog of videos, training videos that are free. There are a number of courses on the Sage Intelligence Community Learning Center. There are courses on the Sage University. We're always happy to help you design and do anything that you might have that's unique or specific. But you'll notice that in this particular case, I've got online help within here, just like you do in Sage 100. So whatever I'm doing, I can actually go in and look at details. This little diagram here is a little bit of how your Sage 100 in the DB buckets moves through Report Manager and ends up over in Excel. So lots of different options in there for help. And then if I go back here, so here is a whole host of videos and a video catalog on the YouTube. So I'll send you that link, but there are hundreds of different items in here for things. And when you look at them, you might just want to be specific because Sage Intelligence works with Sage 50, Sage 300, Sage 500. So if you go in and specify Sage 100, you can kind of filter that down. But all sorts of very simple short reports. There are webcasts that you can sign up for. I'm going to jump back over here for just a second. These are the main links. So just sageintelligence.com will get you to the main port for reports, help, everything. There's the YouTube channel for Sage Intelligence. And again, like I say, you can filter that down to be the Sage 100. The Learning Sage Intelligence is actually the portal for their online classes, which are recorded. You can also sign up, I didn't put it in here, for sageu.com, which are kind of interactive courses on Sage University. But I do want to just show you a couple of these on the web. So here's the online help within here. So you've got all sorts of different things and links to files. Here's the Sage Intelligence community. So if any of you are in the Sage 100 community, there's a separate group that you can sign up for and interact with other users. Lots of different options within there, asking other people's questions. This is the Learning Center. So you can actually, depending on what you're doing, what your level is, you can look at how-to videos. You can go to the Academy, which are the online courses. Lots of different ways to move around in that. With that, I'm going to try and be true to saying we'd take 45 minutes and unmute everybody and open it up for questions. Go ahead. Questions? I know we presented a lot of information, so if anybody has something that's specific, feel free to email me. We will be recording this and publishing this, including the resources at the end, so it'll probably get published and put out likely sometime tomorrow. Okay.
Can you hear me? I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So I have Sage Intelligence reporting, but all I have is a report viewer. How do I get the report manager?
It's there. The license looks like maybe it's been applied to somebody else. So within your organization, if somebody clicks on that, they could, in fact, the license could be taken by another workstation. So in the license manager, which is part of that, if you go to setup, let me see if I can show you that quickly. If you were to go to setup and go to License Manager, you would have the ability to kind of turn off and turn on which users have access to whatever licenses you've got. So when you click on that, it would actually show you which workstation, because the licenses are established by workstation. So if you do that, you could then see who that report manager has been assigned to, but you could basically move it to your workstation.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't even have the folder viewer, but I have the newer view.
Yep.
The only thing I have when I click on Sage Intelligence Reporting is just a report viewer. I don't have any other trees underneath.
Okay.
So I think
and it could be that the setup in your Sage 100 security doesn't have that turned on. I don't know why you wouldn't be in there, but it's possible. So if you didn't want someone in Sage Intelligence, you could just not give them access to those. So I don't know how that's set up. So you might want to look at the roles setup, Clint, just to take a look at that.
Okay, I'll do that and call you if I have any questions.
Yeah, perfect. Other questions? Okay. Christine, I thought maybe I saw you, but I don't see anybody that's got any questions in the chat window. It was a lot of information, so if you do want to get started, there are some links to be able to do that, or just be able to kind of get it turned on. You need your Sage Customer ID, which is in the Help About, if you need that. So there's a couple of things just to get that turned on, that if you want to do, let me know. I'll be happy to at least get you the link to whatever you need to do to get connected and play around with the sample data. And you don't even need to play with the sample data, because the beauty of this is just reading the data from your Sage 100. So it's not like it's going to create any problem with your Sage 100 data. It's kind of a one-way ticket. If there aren't any other questions, I'll wrap up. I will send everybody, whether or not they were able to attend or not, a link to the recorded video, and maybe a little bit more information on the resources. I think there's a quick start little link for if you want to activate your Sage 100 piece. If any of you use the Sage customer portal in the knowledge base, there are knowledge base articles in there as well. If not, and you need a hand, let me know. I'll be happy to at least help you, get connected with it. The one thing that I would say is be really clear about what you want to do with your reports. If you are entering things into Excel, I think this is a really good tool to kind of help make that more efficient. If what's running out of the standard reports is fine, then there may not be any reason to do this. But if you wanted to do something out of accounts receivable or accounts payable, this opens up another area of data that is not there and isn't always easily transferred to Excel. So this is not an add-on for Sage 100. It's part of the standard licensing. There's one report manager for every Sage 100 customer. It is licensed and set up by, as Clint just asked, by workstation. So if the report manager is assigned to a particular person, that person is the only one that can use it. You can let that license, delete the license, and let it be added back to another user, or you can add report viewer licenses or additional report manager licenses. If one person's primarily responsible for generating the reports, there's usually only the need for one report manager license. There's a question about payroll related ports. Unfortunately, to the best of my knowledge, there are not, but payroll has just been recently moved with version 2018 to the business framework, and I would guess that those will start becoming available. So we are planning for those who are payroll users to start offering those upgrades probably in the next few weeks. We've been waiting for product update 2 to come out. So Henry, I will let you know. We've talked about doing that upgrade for you guys sometime here early June, and we'll see what's happening with those reports. And actually you can, because they are ODBC, I say that technically there are no canned reports, but you could link any of those payroll files straight out of Sage 100, which we do all the time in Excel. So there are a way to do that and to save those back. Okay, so I think that's all the questions that I see at the moment. I will send out, like I say, the link to this video with some enhanced resources at the end. If anybody has individual questions or whether or not it seems like a good fit, feel free to drop me an email or reach out. You know, I know most of you directly, so don't hesitate to give me a call. Thanks again for your time. I really appreciate it. Have a great day.